Welcome back to the Message Music Diaries. Thank you for joining us, and we've got an amazing lineup this evening with pianists, drummers, guitarists, and we'd like to get some input from you, the viewers out there. I'm going to put my number down below. Please send me a WhatsApp, send me a message. If you've got any ideas who you'd like to see on one of our episodes, or if you'd like to be on one of our episodes, we'd like to have you, we'd like to interview you, and we'd like you to be a part of this journey that we are on. So without taking too much of your time, we're going to go straight over to the pianos. I hope you enjoy this segment. Welcome everybody. We have the pianists here today, and we're so happy to have every single one of them here. We've got John Golden, Stephanie Williams, Brother Wilton and Brother Muggs with us, and we're going to go through their music in a little while. We're starting off with John Golden, so let's just listen to what he's prepared for us, and then we'll go into the interview. John Golden. John, do you just want to introduce yourself to us quickly?
Hi everybody, can you hear me? My name is John Golden. I'm from Pretoria, South Africa, and I fellowship in the Willows with Brother George Martin, and I've been playing since the age of 11 years, no formal training, and but it has all been thanks to my mentor and cousin, Callaway Van Zieberg, who has actually taught me the basics of piano.
Okay, John, so you told us where you started off with your music. Did you start off with piano, or did you start off with another instrument?
It was actually on an organ. My father had an organ at the time, and I migrated onto keyboard, and from keyboard, I was forced when we had services at the school that had only a piano, so I was basically forced into playing proper piano from where I came from in terms of organ to keyboard to piano.
Okay, so that's an amazing story, John. And now you're playing in a band here at the Willows, and I've had the opportunity of seeing you play quite a few times. And for me, it's always impressive to see somebody play on a real piano. In your case, a grand piano. I know that there's no transpose button on that piano, so you have to play all the keys. Can you play in every single key?
I can get away with every key, but I wouldn't really say I can play every key fluently. But with time, when you're being put on the spot, when someone starts singing in church and you have to find the key, and if it's B or if it's C sharp, you either have to get it right or learn to get it right. So obviously with time, I eventually got it right to get myself fluent in most of the keys, and every now and then I still fumble, but I know enough just to get away with doing it properly without having to be very colorful, as others might say about it.
Yes, and I must say, I've heard you play a few instruments. Tell us a bit about the other instruments that you can play.
Well, there's instruments that I play, and then there's instruments that I can just make sounds and notes on that. So the other instruments that I can make sounds and notes on is your guitar, rhythm, and acoustic and lead, your bass guitar. And then of late, I've also been playing some of the wind instruments. Started with a clarinet in my school days, but now I'm leaning more towards the flute. And yeah, those are the ones I play proper, other than the ones that I just make a noise of.
Do you have a piano at home? I see you've got a keyboard in the background. Is that yours?
Yeah, so yeah, that's my piano. What model is it? It's a digital piano, Yamaha. And I've also got an one, but the acoustic one is currently out of tune at the moment.
Okay. All right. Is that your brand of choice, Yamaha, or is there something else you'd like to have, if you could?
So I have a choice for the type of instrument. So when it comes to piano, digital, and stage, or even acoustic, I would prefer Yamaha. But if it is keyboard, I'd rather go for the Roland brand.
Okay, that's very interesting. And John, you've been playing in church for quite a while, and you've just alluded to the fact that you're playing by ear. Have you had no formal training whatsoever?
No, unfortunately not. Other than the musicians that I looked up to while growing up, who showed me a few things. The rest of it had to come informally by way of the series we listened to. And back then, we never even had the privilege of YouTube. We would actually listen to a cassette or a CD, and we'd rewind and play to get every note of that particular chord. And that's basically how we build up our chord vocabulary. And that's when we're not youth camps looking at guys like Nehemiah, Brother Zion, and them playing piano and stealing a few chords here and there.
Oh, that's interesting. I think my last question to you, John, growing up, in the Message, I know your dad was also a great inspiration to many of us, playing the organ himself. And I know he also was in charge of the band at some stage, but you are in charge of the band now, where you are.
Yeah.
What is your take on, music in the Message, in the church?
I don't want to repeat what was said last week, but I think a lot of us, as individuals in the Message, now where I come from, we have a very diverse band in terms of background and upbringing. At some point, we had a band that was so mixed that some people had formal training, while others was literally just playing by ear. And it even went further than some of them even had different cultural backgrounds, where some are from Malawi, some are from South Africa. So there was quite a big variety in terms of style. And it's not the fact, it was never an issue of can the person play in the band, but rather can that person play in harmony with the rest of the band. So many times we'd have great musicians, but the challenge was the inability for musicians to come together and create harmony within the band. So for me, in our environment where we were, there was a lot of adaptation that had to happen from everyone, including the band leader to the last one to join the band. And the biggest challenge for us was getting people to be on the same page, not to have egos take the show, but everyone doing their part and what is required of them, and still getting it right in terms of what is required of the message.
That's very interesting. I'm going to quickly ask the other musicians that we've got with us today if they don't have any questions for you. I'll start with Sister Stephanie. I don't know if you've got a question for John there this evening.
Yeah, Brother John, I really enjoyed the video. I liked the style that's a style that I like and like listening to. Based on that video, who or what is your inspiration? Your style is very, I don't want to say fairy tale, but fairy tale was the word that came to mind. It's almost like it creates an image, and you managed to play the song "My Sins Were Higher Than the Mountain," and it actually took me a few bars to realize that's what you're playing, and then I suddenly appreciated the song all over. From the beginning, what or who is your inspiration?
I've I've been listening to quite a variety of musicians, both people that we know as well as the music that we grew up with. So I think I really wouldn't be able to tell you who exactly or pinpoint who and exactly that but it probably stems from a few variety of artists that we've been listening to, and I found my own identity through each of those ones in probably a unique kind of way where I would try and take from those the ones that I like, what I like from those, and basically create my own identity through it. But what I always try to do is try to I don't want to sound I don't know what's the word, but I try to play from the heart, not thinking about what I'm playing, but more thinking about how to interpret the song through the words of the song as well as how others would interpret when they listen to that song. And basically playing how it makes me feel. I hope that doesn't sound like a fairy tale answer.
No, that sounds absolutely brilliant. No.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Brother Walton, do you have a question for John?
I just wanted to comment that that was so beautiful and mellow. I just loved listening to it. No specific questions, but lovely.
Brother Muggs?
With myself, John, I actually enjoyed also the video very much, the music. And I was actually going to ask you, what is the song that you were playing there? And Sister Stephanie now sorted it out. So, okay. But it's beautiful, my brother. It's really lovely.
Great stuff. That's John Golden. Thanks so much, John. That was amazing. We're going to go over to Sister Stephanie now, all the way in Cape Town, and let's listen to what she prepared for us. Great is thy
Thank you.
faithfulness. It is exactly, I think, the way the author wanted it to be played. You heard from last week, a lot of comments from the musicians last week was, how did the author want the music played? And I think for us that's a little bit older, Brother Walton, we when we hear the older hymns being played and it gets spiced up, what people say, they spice it up. And you take great is thy faithfulness and you jazz it up or whatever, then it loses the original feel, and that's what that song's supposed to sound like. So Steph, over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah. Good evening, and God bless you all. I am Stephanie Williams, and I'm from Cape Town. I fellowship at what used to be known as Athlone Assembly. We're now Cape Town Tabernacle, under the leadership of Pastor Dale Adams. And I've been playing in the band since approximately 2008, 2009. And I've been playing piano for almost 23 years.
Wow, that's a long time. Have you got any formal training, Steph?
Yes, I do have formal training. I started with my grandfather first when I was about 5, because I showed a keen interest. He had an organ in his house, and he had a piano as well, which I inherited. And then he lost his patience with me. So but I was always intrigued, always attracted to the piano. Sat like second row from the front in church with my dad. When I was small, my forehead hardly cleared the chair height, but I was there. And got formal training then when I was 7, starting from grade 2. And I did music right through up until my last year of high school. So I had formal training up to grade 7 pieces, practical piano, as well as up to grade 5 theory. That was through UNISA. Yeah.
Okay, now I've got a question for you. I went to a little bit of music school, and my music teacher and myself, we irritated each other constantly, because I wanted to play by ear and she insisted that I don't, because she would play the piece first and then I try and copy her, without actually reading what's in front of me. I try and memorize what was being played. Now my question to you is, you play by ear and you've got the formal training. How does those two concepts come together when you are playing?
So I don't know how many people there are who actually have the skill to have had formal training and then discover afterwards, oh, I can play by ear as well. What really helped is I will give the formal training all the credit that it's due, especially when it comes to theory and having your music teacher explain to you the intricacies of how classical music was created, what was the thought process behind it, because all of that I can apply to playing by ear. I will listen to a song, and as I listen, I can see the chord structures. It sounds very strange when I say it out loud, but that is what happens. So I can apply the training, the formal training, to playing by ear. I can hear what's being played. It helps me to transpose it into a new key if necessary. I can work with what I'm hearing by applying my theory. So the two have worked together really well. I irritated my teacher as well, playing by ear, because he would say, okay, so we're going to do a new piece. He plays it, and then I go and I sit down and I'm like, is this what you want? He says, no, you need to read what's on the page. There are dynamics that you're missing. And, so, formal training takes discipline. When you play by ear, you want to run away with it and you just want to do your own thing. Formal training teaches you a measure of discipline, adhere to the style of the piece. What was the composer's intention? What
Mm.
emotion were they trying to carry over? So yeah, my formal training played a very big role. I'm very grateful for it. And yep, it will continue to have an impact on how I play. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. So can you play any other instrument?
Sadly, no. I took a little bit of interest in the silver flute and the clarinet when I was about 15 and 16, and then I lost interest afterwards. So my main instrument is the piano only. I sometimes look at the guitar and I think, oh wow, I wish I could, but no, the piano is the only thing I play. Nothing else. Nothing else. No.
And then which piano is your brand of choice?
At the moment, the piano at church is a Yamaha, and I do enjoy playing on it. I'm very aggressive. My approach has always been very aggressive. I bang when I play. So
Oh.
Yamaha is very lovely. My dream would be to play on a Steinway and Sons one day, should time and the Lord allow. So when it comes to acoustic, Yamaha is brilliant. The sound of a Steinway is just phenomenal. And when it comes to electric pianos, as you saw in my video, Roland is my instrument of choice. I have played on Yamaha.
Yeah.
I prefer the feel of a Roland to the feel of it just feels more like an acoustic piano.
Okay.
So yeah, so the Roland is my choice. Yes.
Okay, so Steph, you indicated to us that you've been in the band, and I envy the band that you're in. Very, very good band you're playing in. And we've had some of your band members on already, and will have many of them still. So my question to you is, your idea of music in the church, and with that, I want to ask you, who was your inspiration? Because the way you play is definitely a unique style, and you have to have a strong feeling of what music needs to sound like in the church, and that's where I'm going to with this question. So who inspired you, and how do you feel about the music in the church?
Okay. My inspirations for music are my dad's side of the family, although he's not musically inclined. My dad's side of the family, my grandfather, a lot of my dad's cousins, they all play the piano and the guitar and the organ. And seeing some of my cousins in church playing in the band, this was when I was still small, was always, them being sisters was something to look up to. Portia played piano, Esther played guitar. They would sing together as a group. Those were my idols, if I can say it that way. Other inspirations, as I mentioned, when I was small, and my dad and I would sit in the second row from the front. I couldn't sit right in front because that's where the band sat. So I would sit in the second row and would watch them, and I'd be so absorbed in what they were doing and how they played, and the sounds I was hearing. And I mean, at 4 and 5 years old, I don't remember much of what it sounded like, but the feelings and the emotions is what I remember, the joy that I felt. And so my family and the band at my home church, those were my main inspirations for wanting to play and for playing the way that I do. Growing up, you continue, you observe, you take in. So I would watch how they play. Are they attentive to what is happening in the service? Do they communicate with one another? And I'm saying all of this now, it's not things that you actually think about when you're watching them, but you pick it up and you notice it. So that had a very big impact on how I play. And my band leader, Brother Edgar was on the session, that you had last week. And he spoke a lot to the leading of the Holy Spirit. That is the most important for any musician to play in the service and to play as part of the band. Each one needs to understand one another, and the Holy Spirit in your life, and a prayed up person, a prayed up musician is what is required coming to the service. For me to play Great is Thy Faithfulness is not just about what's the melody and what chord progressions can I use. The lyrics play an important role. So a lot of my style and how I play and how I approach the music is not necessarily new age. And to each musician, to each his own. Some will prefer the new age, and I don't have anything against the new age. There are some songs that I really do enjoy, but based on where you are, where you do your service. Music is a ministry, and so where you are ministering, your role is to create an atmosphere. It's for the believers to come into a spirit of worship, for their heart and your heart as well to be ready to receive the word that will be ministered. So that plays a big role. I'm not playing for myself. I'm playing for the congregation, and how I then play if the congregation is reverent and quiet, that is how I'll play, and it actually feeds through into the whole band. The whole band will play in the same manner. If the congregation is in jubilee and rejoicing, then we'll pick up the volume and we'll do a few tricks and pull a few things out of our sleeves. But it's my main focus is, what does the congregation want and what does the pastor want? What does the chorus leader want? They will give you small cues. So I will always watch them. Sometimes they say, you don't look anywhere else. Do you look at your fingers? And I'm like, no, I don't need to. So I watch what the chorus leader is doing, or I watch what the pastor's doing. So my inspiration for playing is, what do God's people want? What is the spirit that they are in? And that is what I present.
Okay, that was a really, really good answer, and we can definitely tell that you are under the leadership of Brother Edgar in that in your band, and it comes through in your playing as well. I'm going to ask the other members if anyone has got a question for our sister Steph. John, let's start with you.
First off, Sister Stephanie, that was very, very. I only dream of being able to play like that, and the problem with playing by ear is that you don't learn things the right way. And when people look at the way I play and the way my position, they tell me I'm not supposed to be able to do that because I'm not doing the right things for the right notes. But I just want to sound a word of warning to you. I don't know if you recall, but in Brother Branham's day, there was a sister that played very beautifully, and the angel took her home because of that. So I just want to warn you, you got to watch yourself. We still want to see you on the side blessing us.
I would welcome that. I would welcome that. The believers will mourn and weep, but I'll be home. That is fine.
Beautiful.
So just from me, very, very lovely done, and God continue to bless your ministry. I've had the privilege of being in your church quite a few times, and every time I'm there, I'm glad I'm not playing piano.
Brother Wilton, do you have a question?
Sister Stephanie, I just want to say firstly, it's just so much soul and heart in that playing. And I love that hymn. And I can hear my experience from that piece you played is that it comes from a place of experience. And so that was beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed that. That blessed my heart. I do have a question. I mean, I've written quite a few things. Maybe we'll get your number afterwards. But when you were talking about listening to the music and sort of already phrasing where you're going to go, what the chord progression is, and so forth, do you hear the music in the key that it's being played? Because I can relate to so much of what you're saying, you know, that you can see the chord structures, you can visualize it, and that's the way you transpose it, that's the way you visualize where you're going to go. So I was just interested, do you hear the key, or do you know where you're going? Because in my head everything plays along in my head, you know. That's sometimes I find it a limitation actually, because I see the notes. And anyway, I'm just interested. But thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed that playing. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Brother Wilton, very much. I do actually hear it in a key. So I listen to a lot of Brooklyn Tabernacle. I enjoy the way that the pianist would play, and he is not overbearing. He's not loud. So you need to listen really attentively. I will hear it in the key of F, even if that's not the key. I'm not pitch perfect, so I don't have perfect pitch, and I can't tell exactly which key it is. Muscle memory and your tonal memory, if that's a word, will tend my mind to say it sounds like it's maybe in the region of between F and A. And then I will listen and I'll start figuring out how it would be in the key of F, or sometimes A or D. I very seldomly think of a song in C. I tend to go for all the other keys instead of C. So I do actually see it in my mind. I'm very visually orientated. That helps me memorize things better or learn things better by seeing. So I will see the key of F, or I will see it in the key of A or B flat, or yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good. Thanks. Brother Muggs, you're last on the list.
Sister Stephanie.
Yes, brother.
Sure. Wow. Wow. Brother Wilton already said it to you. There was so much heart in your playing. There was so much anointing. There's also so much skills, so much expression, so much of everything. It was actually so perfect from when you started to the very end, and how it progressed. Everything about it was beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
And I kept looking, and I'm saying, this is a sister, bro. This is a sister. There's such lovely things we're not used to. And we're gonna have to be asking some advice from you. I'm very much interested. Delton asked all the questions I wanted to ask you. Mace was, I don't know, but he asked the questions I want to ask. But like Brother Wilson said, we can ask further questions, privately. But I love it. I'm honored to meet someone that has both the skills of the ear and actually studying the music. It's beautiful, and I'm truly blessed to know and to hear your work. It is truly a blessing. You are very much gifted, sister. I have no question for you. And don't worry, you don't need to play any other instrument. Piano is your instrument. That's
Amen.
Thank you, brother.
Express yourself.
Thank you, brother, very much.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you, brother, very
Thanks.
much.
Okay, so on that note, let's go over to Brother Muggs, and let's just see that piece that he's prepared for us. Oh my goodness, Brother Muggs. That was definitely amazing playing there. Brother Muggs, just quickly introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from.
Okay, my name is Makabongwe. Surname is Mbuli. I am from Vryheid. That's where my home is, but I'm staying in Durban with my family, and I'm currently fellowshipping with under Pastor Gerald Blair. Yeah, that's basically who I am.
Brother Muggs, you've got a very unique style of playing on the keyboard. And what I love about having all the pianists here together is that, it may look like you're playing the same instrument, but what we're hearing, is different sounds coming out from those black and white keys. But that does not mean that it's making the same sound that everyone else is doing here. So we want to ask you, do you want to take us through that song and just tell us, how did you construct it and how do you play it the way you do?
Yes, Brother Elton. You are right. I'm not a pianist. I can see I'm surrounded by such great pianists, and my the song that I just did there is basically everything. I layered the piano. I did the drums. I did the bass. I did the guitars. I did the violins and the trumpet on the keyboard. But all the sounds that you hear there are sounds that I sequence. So basically, that specific song is God on the Mountain. So I did that specifically also as a testimony. It's a song that is. Sister Stephanie said something very nice about something that you must be aware of with the songs and being able to express ourselves in the song. Lyrics. It's not really about how you're playing it or what chords are you putting in. It's how do you actually, because now we when we play there's no, if we're doing instrumental, there's no lyrics there unless maybe there's a slideshow showing us. But personally, when we play, we are actually in our heads, in our hearts, that the words are going through, and we're singing those words and expressing ourselves through it. So like I say, that song God on the Mountain, I got the inspiration mostly from the Gators and how they do it. So I think it's a little bit more country.
Okay. So, having watched you over a few years, Brother Muggs, your style is definitely not country. And I like your interpretation of that song that you've played. For our viewers out there, they may think that this is how you play in church, setting up your own drums, your own bass. And I know that is not how you play. Do you want to take us through that? What kind of sounds would you use in a church setup?
In a church setup, I play second keys. So mostly I'd be, if say we are, let me just make like in our church, if the pianist is playing piano and layering a pad, then I would play sounds like maybe strings to fill up. I'd play organs, depends on the song that you're doing. I'd play bells. Sometimes I'll play flutes. Every single song that comes through, I interpret. If it means that I must play even steel drums, I play. I enjoy incorporating sounds that actually that are related to the song. So each and every song has its own. If a song comes through and it needs brass, then I know that I must play brass. So I enjoy being on the second keys just to add that little bit of color. Certain places I just need to also layer. Sounds like strings, you can just layer, or a pad or organ. So basically, there are instances where we do not have a drummer as well. So I also do drums on the keyboard.
Yeah. And for those people that have not heard you play, I know some people may be raising an eyebrow. The first time I heard Brother Muggs play in a church, I was totally amazed because I couldn't believe how this guy could. It reminds me of a song I heard many years ago. I forget, it was one of the Winans ladies, I think. And when she was singing, there was like It sounded like a water drop, sound in the song. And then you wonder, those years in the 90s, you're kind of wondering, where does that sound come from? One day I'm sitting in church and, they're playing a song and Brother Muggs does that same water drop sound, but it was right at the right place. I couldn't believe it. So I think there's definitely you need a gift to be able to do that. Brother Muggs, we've got another song that you've sent us. I'd just like to switch over to that song quickly, if you don't mind, just to show us a bit of difference there. That ended too quickly. Man, no ways. Woo, Brother Muggs. Oh my goodness. That was something else. That was something else. Absolutely. And I know that the leading part that you did there, you don't always do. For those that's watching that don't know this, last week you heard Brother Spa on the guitar. That's Brother Muggs's brother. And he plays just as well. You can see music runs in the family, and it runs very far, definitely. So, Brother Muggs, we really appreciate that stuff. Tell me something. Who inspired you to play like this?
Sure, it's the late Brother Sbu Masane.
Yeah.
When I heard that, my musical journey is a strange one because it started in a village. But maybe when you ask me another question, I'll be able to take you a little bit back. But when I heard Brother Sbungasan, it also did something to my ear, and what I saw was it was something else. So it inspired me so much, to go into also doing instrumentals and being able to put different sounds together like that.
Yeah. I think definitely you've got the ability to add your own color. When I'm listening to your music, sometimes, last week we had a brother that was singing over a guitar, and his voice filled in all the gaps, that the guitar wasn't filling in. It was beautiful. And what I'm hearing from your music right now is you are able to fill in all those gaps yourself. I mean, you're playing, I could hear organ in the background, I could hear the bass in the background, I could hear the drums, and then over the top, this lead, which choice of lead instrument was that you used in the last track?
Both of them. I used a trumpet. It's the best sound I could get on the keyboard I'm using right now. I normally enjoy using saxophone, so it expressed better than the sounds that I browsed through. But both was a trumpet.
Okay, I think that was definitely quite beautiful. Brother Muggs, do you want to tell us something about your formal training?
No, I do not have formal training, but in high school, I think I was in grade 9. There was music classes, so I thought, let me join music classes at school, and I did not survive. I think I just for 6 months. Same problem. I would not, those knob kiris that you see there. I would also do the same. Just listen And then when she sits aside, then I just play the thing off what I had. But she'd catch me because I can only play off certain keys. So if it's on E, then I'd have a problem. But if it would be on the key that I know, then I'd just. So it didn't really work because I from when I started playing, I always played by ear, and by actually I could only bring out of the keyboard or what I hear and feel, not really what I could see. So the challenge for me was there. That's why I said there's a lot of questions and things I think I will learn from you that's gonna help me to also grow as a musician. I've tried also doing a bit of theory and but it's I don't know. My journey was just another one. But so I did try to do music. That was grade 1, and I did it for about 6 months. Then I stopped and I carried on just growing as I matured. I guess my music matured with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely all on a different journey, and I think our goal is all the same. I think I'll just open it up at this point to the panel. We'll start there with Brother John. Brother John, I don't know if you've got a question for Brother Max over there.
Oh, Brother Max, that was very lovely. Thank you so much. Something different. And I actually have a question that I actually want to ask you is as someone who plays second keys and also with it being in the confines of the message, do you have a specific set of do's and don'ts, especially since what I've learned from what you do, you could literally do anything with second keys. Is there a specific guidelines you use as to what you think is appropriate that can be done in church versus what can be done outside of normal service environment for that matter? And then, if I may, just a second question as well. How do you see the role of second keys, especially in a church setup, in the sense of do you play throughout the entire song, or does it depend on the song itself, the mood, the setting, or do you constantly play throughout?
Okay. First question. It always depends on the song. Like I said, I interpret the song. It also depends on the size of the band. If the band is a full band, I can even sit there and just do bells where bells are needed and switch. You see, some guys can have 4 keyboards. One's got bells, one's got certain synth, one's got flute, one's got It depends. But let's say typically in a band of where there's a pianist, a bassist, a drummer, and a guitarist. So there, in a case like that, I would rather just layer maybe strings or a pad. And if we have a pianist, and because now guitars can also add color, but there are certain songs where second keys needs to come out. So I think I interpret the song. Also, I just feel the spaces where the spaces are needed. Then I feel that gap. I don't know if I answered you, Brother John.
Great stuff. Brother Walton?
Yeah, Brother Muggs, I think you have a really special gift because, being able to layer the different instruments, the different sounds, it doesn't entail just selecting the sound and playing it. You need to have a feel for what does a trumpet do in an ordinary setup? What do the strings do in an ordinary setup? And so you're layering, it's a full-on backtrack there, and I couldn't hear, any different. It could have been a drummer, a skilled bassist, a skilled trumpeter that was playing the layers. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's very, very good. Thank you. Privileged to listen to.
Appreciate it.
Sister Stephanie?
Brother Max, I really enjoyed, especially the second song. When I remember what the Lord has done, I enjoyed the way that you played that. Thank you very much, brother. I am not technologically inclined. I am technologically impaired. And I noticed the skill with which you are able to layer, and Brother Walton's actually made the comment that I've been thinking. You've got the ability to hear the instruments and interpret them in a way that is as if it were that musician rendering that part. To be able to do that, to have a trumpet sound like a trumpet with slides and growls and runs, and did that take a long time for you to learn, and where did you draw the skill from? How long? Can you give us an idea in years? How long did it take just to build that?
So, let me just. I started playing keyboard when I was 9 years old. I remember I got my very first booking at the age of 10. My father had an accordion and a keyboard, a Casio keyboard that used batteries. And I remember we were not allowed to touch it. It was in his room. And, even going to your parents' room, we were not allowed to. But when I was at work, I'd sneak into the room and fiddle with the keyboard. And I got to learn how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on C. One day he came home from work early and he caught me in his room, first of all, and playing his keyboard, which I'm not allowed to touch. But when I realized he's there, and I got a shock, and I took my hands off the keyboard, and I jumped off the seat. He said, "No, sit down. Do that again." And I played it again. Very nervous now. And he came and asked me, how did you learn that? I told him, I just figured it out. And he said, do you want to learn how to play? I said, yes. And then there was a guy, a man in the village that could play. He was a teacher. My mother was a teacher also. So he took me to him and he taught me how to play. And I remember he taught me off the key of C sharp, that 1-4-5 progression. That's all he gave me, and that from that to this day, I never looked back. I expanded from there, and I think it was the different sounds that I got exposed to as I grew up, and as I changed also my environment. My sound also grew when I started fiddling with different sounds on a keyboard. A keyboard, you have organ. On a keyboard, you've got drums. On a keyboard, you've got bass, guitars, you've got cellos, you've got violins, you've got flutes, you've got everything on a keyboard. All the instruments you have. What I'd do, I'd pick a random instrument and I'd challenge myself, see what I can do with this instrument, put on a marimba and just play. But what would always happen when I played the instrument, it would trigger a certain sound or feel, and I'd play it, according to what I've heard before.
Okay, wow, Brother Muggs, that was a great testimony. Okay, great stuff. So
That's fine.
without further ado, we'll go over to Brother Walton at this time. Brother Walton, that is some amazing playing there. Do you want to introduce yourself to us, please, my brother?
Yeah, so God bless you all. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you all tonight. And so I'm Walton van der Walt, the very Afrikaans name there. And I am from Johannesburg. I stay in the East Rand area and fellowship in the East Rand area at EGC. So that's with Brother Gideon Retief. Yeah, that's who I am.
Great stuff, Brother Walton. You know, I didn't want to be prescriptive to, you know, what people are playing. So when I give you a call and I say, hey, you know, please record something for us, I generally, you know, I try my best not to be prescriptive. But in the same breath, someone like, you know, Magabongwe, we want to hear, you know, the way he plays instead of just playing, you know, something that everyone else can play. So with Brother Walton, that specific, the way he played right there, he took us from a slow song into a fast song. You felt that, you know, how your spirit drifted up with that and how he slowed it down again at the end. Definitely skillful playing there, Brother Walton. And I think it's not so much from the skill of what you can do, but more from your experience. And I was actually trying to count. I think I met you close to 20 years ago at a youth camp when you were playing the piano. How long are you playing the piano?
I think it's 31 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was quite young. My memory and my mother says around 5 years old. So my mother was a pianist, and so was my grandmother, and we all stayed in the same house, obviously. And so I got interested in the piano fairly early in life. And yeah, my mother showed me the basics, and that's really where it started from.
And did you get any formal training then?
So, you know, I chuckled a few times tonight because there's so many parallels between everyone's stories. And I think Sister Stephanie and myself, we have a lot of similarities. I played by ear. My mother's piano at the house was her piano. Her father bought the piano. So the piano was already very old by the time it came to me because she was the Latlamiki in the family. And it was not in a very good state. Really, the white notes, they didn't play well. Many of the hammers were broken. And so, you know, I was forced to play on the black notes. That's sort of how it started. And then I went to school, and one of the other brothers were also talking about playing in school. I don't know if it was last night or tonight, but yeah, I would play for the hymn gatherings. Those years we still had hymn gatherings. You know, I remember specifically all the grade 2 classes would gather together in the teacher's class that had the piano, and we would do hymn singing. You know, and I remember expressly playing some hymns there, Afrikaans hymns at the time. And then around about now grade 5, standard 3, I think it was, I started formal training. Okay. I started classical training. My poor teacher, you know, like everybody else's teachers on this panel tonight, she would pull her hair out because she just had to play it for me. You know, if we were choosing pieces for the next practical exam, I would ask her, well, can you just play it so I can get a feel for it? You know, and then then I knew where we were going. Fine, you know, I learned to read the notes fine. But that's sort of how it played out. So it's very similar to everyone else's story. And I went exactly like Sister Stephanie. I went up to grade 7 and grade 5 theory, and then started practicing grade 8 in my matric year. And I really regret I never finished it because I decided no, matric was too hectic, and I pulled out of grade 8 and I didn't actually play it. But yeah, that's the extent of formal training. But you know, after school, it's really by ear. It was always by ear, and that's sort of how I roll.
And definitely, I can definitely agree that you definitely roll on those keys. You've got a special gift, you know, that I've picked up over the years, and that is, you know, after the minister has preached, then you will, you know, come up and they'll call the musicians up, and you know, God forbid that they call the bassist up and I have to be there first. I'll do a couple of slaps and just take the whole spirit away. But you've got a really unique gift coming up after a minister, to play exactly, what he was preaching in the line that he was preaching. Tell us a bit more about how do you manage to do that?
Mm-hmm. I wish it was a really long story, but it really isn't. There are services where that's really a nerve-wracking experience because I wait for the inspiration.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's been times where I am sitting there enjoying the service, and I'm walking up to the piano and I don't have the song yet, And I have had dry spells where I woke up and I'm like, checking my life and saying, Lord, where is it? Where have I not pleased you? What is it that I must get straight? What have I thought? What is it? Because it's just exactly as you said it. It's just the if you want to call it a gift, it's an anointing. It's just there. It's there. When I sit down, it's there. Many people on tonight's panel and last week have spoken about music being a ministry and being used and inspired by the Holy Spirit. And to me, that's the crux of all of this. So really, I cannot say any more than that, Dalton. I do think there's a degree of experience. I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I remember specifically being in Brother Willie Retief's house. Those days there was a small little band. Sister Betty Retief played the piano. And I remember my mother played the organ. I remember falling asleep under my mother's organ chair there, and the orchestra leader at that time was Brother Barney de Beer. He was the son of Brother Lucas de Beer, who is coincidentally the house where Brother Branham stayed when he came to South Africa. Anyway, that's not the important part. But so that was my experience. I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and so I learned so many songs over the decades. So there's a library in my mind. I'm sure Sister Stephanie, she's been playing for many decades too. There's a library that you can draw on. Absolutely. But certainly the right song, the right time, I can only say that that's the Lord, it's the anointing that does it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And also my short 20-year experience with you. I remember at one of the first youth camps that I saw you, they asked Brother Wilton to lead choruses the next day. So it's Saturday evening. We're young people. We were around, I don't know how much older I am than you, Wilton, but I guess we're about the same age. Not to give our ages away.
No, let's not go there.
So here we are, young people. I had the guitar there, and Brother Wilton is sleeping in my room. And Brother Wilton excuses himself because he's going to the room. And I had to eat with it. So, Wilton, where are you going to? No, he needs to prepare for tomorrow. I said, prepare for what? No, he's leading choruses. And I said, come on, man, it's easy. You just pick a few songs and you go for it, And I think that is one thing I learned about Brother Wilton. Whether it's singing or playing, he really takes it extremely seriously, and he makes sure that he's prayed up before he goes there. So, we want to say that it's experience and it's skill, but most definitely you follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. And I must say that, I admire that about you. Definitely, Brother Wilton. It's definitely something to be admired by all musicians, to be that prayed up before you go take your instrument.
You're very kind. I'm not without faults. When you have two little toddlers in the car and they argue on the way to church, you don't arrive very prayed up. I'm just
we know that story. Yeah, we know that story. Yeah, no, definitely.
But thank you. I appreciate it.
No, thanks, Brother Wilton. So tell us a bit, I want to speak to you a bit about theophonic. That is something you started, and I saw one of your productions. I saw singers, I saw musicians at your production that I'd never ever seen before. So do you want to tell us a bit about the idea behind that?
I'm gonna try to not be too long about this. As musicians, I think all of us can testify of this. All of us feel this way. For many years, many of us felt we play in church, we play Sunday morning, Sunday evening, we play Wednesday night, whatever the service times are, and we never really get time to, I'm going to use the word exhibit to our fullest. Because here's something I believe, as much as we serve and as much as our gifts are dedicated, which they should be, they should be. We are musicians. We enjoy performing. And church is not necessarily always the right platform for that, or the most appropriate platform for that. And, you know, at the time, I must mention Brother Joshua Marshall, amongst others. You know, there's a number of brothers. I mean, there's a team of 14 people. But anyway, many discussions were held. Oh, one day we should do something. One day we should do something. And really, we were at a wedding, and there was an amazing song item rendered by the bride, and we sat around a table at that wedding, and we said, you know what, we must do this. And we created a WhatsApp group right there and then around that table. Everybody in around our table ended up in the team. While we were dishing our food, I was telling Brother Gideon Latif, we got to do this. We have to do something. And really, that's where it started, you know. And then we discovered there's so much talent in the message.
Absolutely.
So, you know, we made a list for that first event. If people we knew, different people suggested, and so on. And, you know, there wasn't a very scientific process. Really, we had a list. We wrote it down on paper. We had a meeting in one of the brothers' houses one Saturday afternoon. We made a list of people, SMS'd them, and, you know, we couldn't have imagined how big the production turned out and everything that went into it. But really, there's something else I want to add. And that is that in this day and age we live in, there's so much distraction for our youth. And we mentioned this multiple times. If we can take our young people and put them in a setup where they can use their gifts, where for that night or that practice session, maybe they're not doing online gaming for 6 hours, you know, but they are actually dedicating their gifts to the Lord. They are playing. That could only be a good thing, because that puts them in an atmosphere where they're with other believers. It puts them in an atmosphere where someone can meet the Lord. And even for the concert, we said it over and over and over and over. If one person can be touched by what we've done, can be blessed, can be brought out of a depression, can be healed. We know Brother Branham speaks about healing that can come through music. Anything to that effect, then we would have accomplished what we set out to do. So that's really how the whole process started. And, you know, we went from there. We did Eagles Rise and so forth. The rest is sort of history, you know.
Yeah, and I think I must commend you on a job well done. You know, that you managed to pull it off, because every musician sitting here now, you ask them how easy is it just to have a band practice, never mind pulling off a production of that size, you know, and to get everybody there and on time and practicing and going through the music. So well done, you know, for pulling that. I know you got a few gray hairs from those events. So well done. You know, I've got a question for you, Brother Wilton. You play in a very, very unique band setup, which we rather refer to as an orchestra, I think, you know, because you've got violins, you've got a few instruments in your band that typically, you know, many of the other churches do not have, from lack of skill and maybe also fear from some of the people to, you know, have an orchestra like you have. Do you want to tell us a bit about because I imagine you are the band leader there. Do you want to tell us about the size of the band and how you, the type of music that you incorporate through all the instruments that are there?
Yeah, I am the, if you like to call it, the band leader, the orchestra leader. We refer to it where we are. We are in a very unique situation. And I remember many years ago, we've done this for very long, a family came to our church, and this family had a violinist and a flautist and a clarinet player in the family, and all of them joined the orchestra. And from there on, it was just like a whole generation of young people got inspired to play, to learn, to go for lessons, etc. To where we are now, I think we are third generation or third batch of, for example, string players in our orchestra. We've got four violinists. We've got a cellist, what we call an organist or second keys, pianist, bass, drums, 2 guitars, 2 flutes, and 2 saxophones. So yeah, I mean, what does that make? I'm an accountant, I should know. That's about 13, 14, 15 people, something like that. Very unique. requires an extreme amount of discipline. You know, because otherwise it just becomes absolute chaos.
Absolutely.
What I like to do is, you know, there's someone that heads up each section. So there's a first violinist, there's a flautist, there's a saxophonist, and they take care of their section. You know, if something needs to change, if a harmony needs to change, if something was clashing, if we don't have quite the harmonious and melodic level we want, I just speak to that person, and really very gifted people. I think all of the flautists and saxophonists and violinists, 90% of them have all had classical training, played exams, etc. So technically, they're very advanced. You can give them all scored music. Many of them can score music themselves, which definitely helps, you know. So if we're learning new songs, Sister Stephanie was referring to more the, I don't know, do you call them the modern songs, the secular songs, the contemporary Christian songs, whatever it might be. You know, we like to lay our hands on the music quickly, because then the melody is immediately established within 10 minutes, you know, as opposed to a 40-minute session on what the melody does and how it's syncopated and so forth. So it's a very unique setup we have. You
know, so my last question on that point is, I've played in a band before, you know, a few years ago, where we had a lead guitar, we had a saxophonist, you know, and you had a lead bassist, and you had second keys that wants to lead, and everybody wants to lead. In your orchestra setup, how do you sort that out? How do you sort out who's leading, who's playing first? Is it just by ear, or do you decide in a practice, or how do you decide
that? Dalton, it's very organic. I think it's the many years of us doing it. So I think probably about a decade ago, even longer maybe, we went through a phase where we said, okay, guys, you know, we're really growing. And, you know, if you listen to the recordings, it was a bit of a mess, you know, because everybody goes off on their own tangent. And so where we are now, there's a lot of signaling that happens on stage, but I can honestly say, you know, before we start, the orchestra always prays. We pray before we start. I don't have a set list of what we're going to, which songs I'm going to play pre-service. And we just start and we roll. And you know, the violins will pick up, they'll play. They have certain signals between them, the saxophonist, the flautist, the violinist, where they say, okay, you pick up, I'm going to pick up, I'm just going to do a harmony with you. But the very big thing we had to implement was less is more. Less is always more. It's sort of a motto I live by at a spiritual level with the orchestra, as well as, you know, just a mechanical level. So everybody has had to practice a great deal of restraint to give everybody space to shine, you know, to give the guitarist a moment to lead, and never mind that, to maybe give a solo violinist a chance, a solo cellist, and so forth, you know. And where we are now, it's really an organic process. It just happens. We don't stipulate it. There are certain songs that are certain people's specific songs, but it happens very organically.
Okay, cool. I think that's enough questions from me. Let's ask our panel quickly.
Okay, Brother Wilton, the first time that I heard about you was when I flew to Joburg and I came to watch a concert, and I was impressed, thoroughly impressed and blessed. I don't actually have any questions, because what I jotted down you have answered, and a lot of what you have said I can relate to. It's uncanny actually, that everything, a lot of what you're saying, it's like, oh wow, I had the same thing. I played at school, and I ended up playing the national anthem one day at random, and then they made me do it for like the rest of my primary school career. So
that's what I did.
I don't have any questions. I really enjoyed listening to you, and I can definitely also attest that everything you've implemented, what you have learned as the band leader, and what I've heard and seen, I can definitely see that the two match up. And I am very grateful that I got to hear your story, because I I can learn from it. I definitely feel that I can learn from it. Many musicians, those who are established as musicians and those who are starting out just fresh, starting out in their church band, starting out in their youth band, can draw a lot from what you've said. And I want to thank you for that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're most kind.
Absolutely. Some good comments there. Brother Wilton, I cannot wait to get some of the orchestra players that you have in your orchestra, to get them on here and interview them and ask them a few questions. I'd like to hear how they feel about you as a band leader, and maybe not publish.
You're gonna call me a tyrant.
No, but I think that's all, folks, from my side. If there's anything else.
Nothing much to add. I am very grateful for this opportunity. Being a sister as a musician, I was not aware that there were many sisters who are musicians until only a few years ago. And I'm ever sorry that it took me so long to discover that. I mean, that plays piano and they are in a band and active. I mean, I'm used to seeing convention bands as just all brothers, and church bands are all brothers. And then when I started, I felt like this oddity of sorts, and there's no one else that I can say, this is so weird for me sometimes. So I have learned a lot from the session. I've learned a lot from every musician on this panel this evening. It's been a wonderful experience. Brother Dalton, Brother Joseph, thank you very much for arranging this.
You're welcome. Brother Wilton?
Yeah, if I may take the liberty, I thoroughly enjoyed the session. I thoroughly enjoyed last week's session as well. There's incredibly talented musicians, and you know, there's some questions that came up in that session, and also Brother Golden raised it earlier. You know, it touches on style in church and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, etc., etc., etc. And to me, really, no one can define what must be done or what mustn't be done.
Mm-hmm.
I love to look at the example of David. And David was a musician, a gifted musician. I bet there were many talented musicians in that day, all right? But what was the difference with David? When he came before the king and he played his music, he was a channel.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit could move. I believe, if I can call it, Holy Spirit could move. And that demon that was on the king could leave.
Absolutely.
And we have a great responsibility, because people come into the sanctuary burdened, under depression. We know there are people that suffer great things. You know, there are topics that have been raised by certain pastors in later years, which I really appreciate. You know, there are people suffering depression, young people suffering thoughts of suicide, and, you know, whatever it might be. There are people who are seriously ill. And the first thing they meet when they come into the sanctuary is the music. And I think we have a massive responsibility to get ourselves out of the way. You know, it links with that less is more concept. Get ourselves out of the way, and let God use our gifts and minister to the body, because the time is at hand. And, you know, the bride needs to get ready. We need to go in a rapture. And may we be used of God to effect that. You know, that really is my prayer. But I've really enjoyed it, and I would love for us to do this again and make more contact. Really, it would be really lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there's so much that can be said, you know, so much that can be said, so many topics that can be discussed. So God bless you all. We've really enjoyed it. Thank you. And thank you for including me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Brother Walton. Brother Muggs, do you have any closing comments from your side?
No, I just also want to thank you, Brother Delton, Brother Joe. This has been lovely. Brother Wilton, Brother Stephen, Sister Stephanie. You're saying the message we just know brothers playing, especially in South Africa. So Big up to you. This initiative. I'm for it. I love this. I love the spirit that it's moving in. It's really encouraging. It is so difficult to worship under an anointing of competition, and it's so difficult for me. I know I fail. If someone will come and say, "Hey, come and hear this guy," or come and, "Hey," I can't, because I'm moved by inspiration. I'm moved by the spirit. I'm moved by the energy. I'm moved by, if I'm playing in the band. For me, it's beyond the skills. If I also have learned in my experience that if you do not get along as 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 people, as outside of the music, it actually comes out in the music. And in most cases, our personalities come out on our music. That is why I said that I in my journey, I've realized that the more I mature as a person, my music matured with me. And best way I know to express myself is through the music. So music is a powerful gift. It's not for us, it's for God's people. We just also an instrument to speak out. So I'm privileged to meet more ministers of the word as well through music. And I'm honored by Delton. I hope that I will also have a privilege to come on this platform again and share more stories and hear more stories from other musicians. Thank you so much, man. God bless you. May this grow to something bigger than you. And all to the glory of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Brother John, do you want to give us some closing comments from your side?
The one thing that I do want to just say in closing is that it's probably been mentioned before, but it's no harm to just reiterate it, that many times in the message especially, we only look at the physical ability of people. And many times when I find myself sitting there in front in church playing, especially when you're not sure which song to play next, many times we don't realize that obviously there's a spirit behind the music, and our spirits as individuals, as musicians and as pianists, if our spirit isn't right, no matter what we play, there's anointing that goes with it is going to obviously fall on other people in the church.
Amen.
So it obviously not saying that being the musicians that we are, and it probably doesn't go so much for the people on this panel, because I'm sure we're all on the same page, but for anyone aspiring to be a musician and a pianist out there, bear in mind that it's not just about the physical ability, the musical ability, but also it's also about the life that goes along with it once you walk away from. And I just think that many times we lose a lot where we're just thinking about the styles, the way we play, and not realizing that there's what's going on behind the scenes spiritually. And if we can just yield ourselves more to the leading of the Spirit, like Brother Walton said, I really see that music is one of the ways that us as individual musicians in individual churches, it's something that can actually bring us together, just like this platform is doing, like projects like Theophonics is doing. And I want to commend and thank you all for this amazing thing that started, and may it not just end with the ending of lockdown, but may it actually continue, because there's many others after us that can benefit from what's going on.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, John. And thanks everyone for joining us today. I think it was quite amazing. Wow. The pianos are always a very interesting segment of what we're doing around here. I think the pianists really keep the band together, hold it together, and they need to be spiritually grounded for the sake of the entire band. I'm not going to say that they're the most spiritual in the band, because then I'm looking for trouble. But I definitely think you can agree with me that what we've seen so far from our pianists, I am definitely blessed and so amazed by what they've said to us and what they've shared with us. So we've got the drummers up next, and we've got two amazing drummers that's joining us this evening. Stay tuned, to see what they have to share with us. Good. So we're going to start this evening with the videos with the drummers. We're going to start with Brother Katlego, and we'll watch his video, and then he'll introduce himself to us. That was some good playing there, Brother Katlego. Don't you just want to introduce yourself to us? Tell us where you're from, which church are you in?
Name is Katlego Mutane. Normally they call me Sticks. And I'm I'm from Tembisa, which is my home place, where my parents are, and I fellowship at Mamelodi Tabernacle. But originally I fellowship in Christ. So
Hey,
yeah, that's who I am.
Brother Sticks.
Yes.
I could see why you
Yes.
got the name Sticks.
Actually, the name Sticks. I was playing at a concert, the Skosana family concert,
Yes.
and then I think it was the first recording, if I'm not mistaken, and it happened that Brother Smooth just called that name when I was performing, when it was my time to perform, and then when it was my turn, then he just said, "Hey guys, welcome, it's Brother Katlego Sticks." Then that's where the name started. Then I was known as Sticks. Yes.
No, my brother, it is very, very hard to find, some talented drummers, especially, in the message circles, because, drums are not in every single church. So how long are you playing the
Yes.
drums?
Actually, in church, I can say professionally, I started in 2010.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, yes. So before that, I used to play, at school. I maybe take some dustbins and then, make a beat out of them. Actually, drums were my passion. Then I started to introduce it in church. So it was something that I loved from the beginning. It's a God-given talent.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you there. So you playing since 2000.
Yeah.
Did you get any formal training in the drums?
No, not really, but I attended a certain class somewhere here in Tembisa to get some more lesson. And I also had a friend who was called Walter. He was playing on Jazz Celebration touring. He's not that
Mm-hmm.
famous, but he for me to play with my left hand, he's the one who took that ability out of me because I didn't know that I use left hand to play.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he sometimes locked me in a room and say, "You should know this beat. By the time I come back, then you'll play that beat." So man, I pushed and pushed until I managed to get the beat. So from there, that's when he encouraged me and said, "Man, you're going to become a good drummer." And
Yeah.
that encouraged me a lot. Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
And was he
yeah,
like the person that you looked up to?
yes, yes. He was the person I looked up to because even you can see the way I perform when the expression, the facial expression. He really enjoyed what he was doing, even though it wasn't that sometimes the beats were just simple, but you make them seem like they were tough. The
Yeah. Yeah.
expression made me feel like, wow,
Yeah.
I love drums. I love drums really. Yes,
You
facial
know, and,
expression
and, and
speaks a
you,
lot.
you, you mentioned a very important point there right now. I was assisting a few years ago, I assisted in the judiciation of some musicians, and I wasn't the judge, but I sat with a panel of judges. And one of the things that they judged, the musicians by was their
Yes,
facial expression while they were playing. you know.
yes,
And I
yes,
know myself
yes,
as a musician myself, when I'm playing, I tend to concentrate and then I get a dull look on my face. So when people look at me in the
yeah,
audience, they
yes,
think, that guy's
yeah.
not enjoying what he's doing. But I am. I am.
They become scared.
So with you,
Yeah.
I'm watching you play now, and I'm seeing that
Mm,
expression on your face. I mean, you enjoying it so much that I want to do what you are
yes.
doing.
Yeah, like before people can enjoy it, you have to enjoy it first. You know,
Absolutely.
it must.
Yeah.
You should be happy first before other people can become happy. So this thing
I
starts
like that.
from you. Yeah,
Yes.
it's an individual affair.
Yes.
It starts from you before it goes to the other people.
Yes. Okay.
So
No, that's good.
I can say in a simple way, self motivation yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's quite a journey to get there to that place where you can motivate yourself.
Mm.
So I want to ask you a
Yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah.
On the drum kit, do you have your own drum kit that you use, or are you using the church's drum kit?
I have my own drum kit, which is Tama.
Tama.
The very same one you see on the video is my drum kit. Yes.
Okay, so tell me now. There's a few people watching here that don't know very much about drums. I noticed that all the drums were not there. So can you explain to us, your kit setup? Why do you play with that specific setup?
Yeah. The thing is, I was performing at a certain church there, and it was due to the space.
Okay,
There wasn't enough space, so I
okay,
use I use what I had.
okay.
Yeah, it's a creativity there. See, yeah.
Yes, yes,
Normally, you see when the jazz drummers they don't set up uh, the whole piece.
exactly.
They just set
Yeah,
up few and then good to go.
yes.
Yes,
And then tell me about the cymbals that you're
yes.
using. Are you using the cymbals that came with the kit, or did you buy separate cymbals?
No, I bought separate cymbals. The one that came with the kit, they don't sound nice. They sound like kids drums. See.
You know, I think
Yeah,
drummers,
so
when they look at each other and they watch each other playing, if they see each other playing with the standard cymbals that came with the kit, then already you're losing some points.
because yeah, I bought separate cymbals because I wanted a certain sound from the. You see, every drummer wants a different sound. He has his own
Yes,
taste.
yes.
Yeah,
And I think that is the most important part, you know, getting your own sound.
yes, getting your own sound that is comfortable to you.
Okay, so we must. I think, and what is your opinion then about people that tell you that the sound you are making is not comfortable to them? Because speaking about sound
Okay.
that's comfortable to you, what about the people that say your sound is not
Yes.
comfortable to them?
Actually, when you play, you for a different crowd. So, because many people have different tastes. See, so it's not easy though, but you have to try and adjust to what they want because
Yeah,
we are there to serve the people with good sound. We are there to serve people with good sound and
yeah,
give them quality sound.
yes.
So if they say fix 1, 2, 3, and you believe that is positive, then we work on positivity.
That is very important. To just work on the
Yes.
positives. So I know you've played at a few concerts before. How many, concerts have you played at before? Do you know off by hand, or is it too many?
So so far it's I'm not sure it's mainly because some were intimate worship, small concerts, others are main ones. Because many people know me from Kosana Family concerts,
Yes,
but
yes.
I also played for other unknown artists. So yeah, I got some of my experiences from there.
Okay,
Learning from there.
okay. So how do you adjust the way you play at the concert and how do you play in church? How do you make that adjustment?
Actually, the concerts is mostly we rehearse, right? And concert mostly rehearsed, and with it takes too much of your time because um, we play according to the repertoire. But church, you might find that the chorus leader is not there, whereas you rehearsed with another one yesterday. So you just sometimes we play according to ear, sometimes we play according to what we rehearse. So in terms of church, it depends. But in terms of the concert, you play according to what you rehearse. That's
Uh,
the difference. So in terms of adjustment, we you yourself you try to adjust to the situation,
mm.
looking at the situation. Yeah, you automatically as an individual, you try to adapt positively to what you hear and what is happening.
Mm. No, that makes a lot
Yes.
of sense. So we've got a lot of young guys, that's watching this, a lot of young drummers out there that want to start playing drums. What advice do you have for them?
Yes. What I can say is that always stay positive and always learn to learn every day. God is the only perfect one. So we as a human, I'm not perfect. I learn every day. And like they should go to YouTube and learn some more stuff. And maybe I could advise to for them to buy their own kit. When he's free, set up a drum set and then play what he wants to learn and take it from there. But positivity is key in everything that you are willing to learn.
Mm. No, I think
Yes.
that's important. So I actually have a final question for you. Um, we have had this
Yes.
question last week with Brother Dylan that we had on, and I'll ask you the same question. How do you feel about
Mm.
music in the church? What is your opinion about that?
Uh, so far, music in the church, actually in my church, it has moved to another level. That in terms of, if you practice, I encourage people, like, if we have a Sunday service, like, I I believe that when we have rehearsals on Saturdays, maybe you meet every Saturday, like the quality of music on a Sunday will be on another level. Because when you practice every Saturday for the Sunday service, you come with new ideas, with a good spirit. Like, you must be in one heart, one spirit, and pray before you rehearse. And so far, when I've listened to music in churches, like, it shows that we are praising God in a good way. And if we can take it from there with a positive spirit, then we'll go far. So music in churches so far, I cannot complain. I think we are at the right track.
Yeah. Wow. No, that is a
Yeah.
very, very good answer. We must remember to remain positive. I'm going to quickly ask Brother
Yes.
Theo over here if he doesn't have
Yes.
a question for you. Brother Theo, I know you've been listening since the beginning. So I don't know if you've got a question for...
Yes. So that setup, that video that you played, was that in church or was it in a
Yes, actually, it was in church. They were celebrating. Can't remember what they were celebrating, but it was in church. It was a church setup.
Okay, so the reason for my question is you had an arrangement that you guys were playing with, one or two breaks that you were doing, and there was a certain role that you were doing as well, where you were using your right hand on the snare drum. It was very nice. It was like a build to a fall. Is that something that you usually like to do in church, doing arrangements of songs? Or is it just something that you just play by ear? If a fall comes, it falls. If a break comes, it breaks.
Yeah, the breaks we rehearsed, but that one I did on my right hand, it was something that came through my creativity. When you want to add some spice on the song, you don't want it to be boring or something, then you add some spices, and then after that you're good to go. Yeah, so it's the spice that I added. To sometimes when you must feel the song. When the song is playing, you must feel it. Like, it must go with your blood. Yeah.
No, thanks, man. I enjoyed it so much, buddy.
Yes.
Okay, Brother Katlego, we're gonna go over to Brother Theo now, and he sent us a recording a bit earlier. So we're just quickly gonna listen to that, and then we'll move over to him. Whew, Brother Theo, that was some playing there, my brother. Just, don't you just want to introduce yourself to us quickly?
So I'm Theo Kwangli, originally from Port Elizabeth, now staying in Pretoria, and I'm a drummer.
Theo, that is not the only instrument you play. What other instruments do you play?
Well, a little of guitar and piano. And then in primary I did, and in high school I did saxophone. But that's only until grade 3. But yeah, the bass guitar, guitar, piano, I learned in the house, from my other brothers.
Uh-huh. So just for our viewers out there who don't know, we had Brother Nehemiah on last week, and that is the older brother of Brother Theo. And we saw how multi-skilled and multi-talented he was, and we can see that Theo is right up there with his brother. Actually, all three of them. We're looking forward to see Emmanuel on this, at some point as well. But Brother Theo, so just take us through that song that you played now. The style that you played and the name of the song. And would you normally play like that in church?
So, yeah, the name of the song is Zinkaba Ambayotina. It's a typical African song with a typical African beat. It's a song that we play a lot or use a lot in church. And as you can see, even Sticks song, Calypso. So hence I chose that beat. It is the question of would I play like that in church? Dalton, most of it, yes. There's a part where I do a backbeat on the cymbals. There's a part where I do a backbeat fill as well. And that's the type of things I wouldn't do in church, obviously. But most of the fills, yes.
Okay, Theo, so I know very little about drums. In my limited knowledge, I know what's a rock beat, and I know where's the foot pedals and where's the splashy things on the top. But now I've got a question for you. So when you're playing a beat like you were playing, from my ear, what I could just hear, I heard a lot of ghost notes and a whole lot of things. Is that more, personal preference playing like that? Or is it, coming from tuition or formal practice that makes you play those kind of styles?
So a little bit of both. But I had a couple of tutors in my life, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And my main tutor is in the army band with Nehemiah. Bako is a jazz drummer. And their style of playing, obviously, is lots of ghost notes involved, obviously. And obviously that I picked from them. But in terms of what I do mostly on the drums is basically what I feed from my practice pad. What I do on the practice pad, I try to apply on the drum set. And it's just patterns basically that you put together. And obviously your left hand, your right hand combinations, bass drum combinations, you obviously your accent on certain notes, and automatically the rest of them becomes ghost notes.
So Brother Theo, I enjoyed your playing, and I know you for many years, and one time you came to our church and you saw a drummer there, and you helped him a bit, and the first thing you did was you brought him the next time you brought him a practice pad, and you said to him, I need you to practice. You need you to practice some paradiddles. So I want you to take us through, a practice routine specifically on something like paradiddles, because that is not self-taught, I imagine. Something like that would come from formal training. You can watch it, you can, learn it, read it in a book, but I think from your formal training is where it actually comes from. So do you want to take us through that routine quickly, show us what it looks like, and from the start to the end, where I want to start and where I want to end up with that practice?
So I'll play something now on the practice pad. With that being said, I'm gonna play 4 different patterns that I use basically in a routine that I practice, and then I'll just play another pattern that you can use actually just to make it more fun, number one, and to be more creative. that is typically a the first thing I done was it's a paradiddle. Then I went into a double paradiddle, and then I went into a double stroke roll, and then I went into a triplet. So how I got to that, I started working on the paradiddle. Then finding the way to get a paradiddle fast.
Yeah.
Is the left hand you should speed up your left hand.
Okay.
Now in the paradiddle, it goes ta ka ta ta ka ta 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 ka. So it's right, left, left. So if you take the right between the two out, then your left hand becomes a triplet.
Okay.
So basically you're just chirping in the right hand there.
Yeah.
So I decided then let me work then on my left hand, and then let me work on triplets.
Yeah.
So I started working on triplets on the left hand, and then you basically just jerk in that right hand before you hit double on the left hand. That basically makes it a paradiddle. So then after working on the different exercises, I then came up with this exercise that includes basically your paradiddle, your double paradiddle, your doubles, and your triplets. All came from practicing so I can speeden up my paradiddle.
Gee whiz. That is quite amazing, man. And you learned all of that just from practicing a simple paradiddle.
100%.
Gee whiz. Brother Thea, I'm so grateful for you showing us that, and I think there's a lot of drummers out there that will be grateful for that lesson. I mean, some free lessons that they're getting here now. And I know you started your own little YouTube channel where you're also giving lessons. So if the guys are interested, I'm sure they can just comment below and you'll give your details to them. But now let's bring it back to the church now. You've practiced, you've walked that roundabout. We've heard every single musician say that, we walk that circle. And that circle includes when it's your time to shine, you do too much. You come up there, you play every roll, you hit every cymbal, in every bar. and you just want to show, I'm here, I've arrived. Now, we've all walked that path, and you walk that full circle, and where you are right now, I want to hear, what is your opinion then about drums in the church? How do you feel about that?
Dalton, my advice would be obviously to keep it simple. The drummer really sets the pace, obviously. The drummer consolidates the band. People jive in church, and the drummer should be able to keep the groove.
Yeah.
And I always say, if a drummer goes out by a beat, by two beats, you don't only throw your fellow musicians out, you throw the whole church out, the whole assemblies out. So yes, that journey you're speaking about, we all went through stages, and we were on places in our lives where we want to show off in church and go crazy on the cymbals and on the toms. But then I think we come to a point where we mature and we realize that it's not about me. It's about the band. It's about backing the singer, and obviously for the audience to enjoy the music.
So okay, I've got another question. Since we've combined the bass and the drums tonight on together, and since I think everybody here has got a good idea of how bass and drums ties in together, from your opinion, how closely should a bass guitarist and a drummer work together?
Very close, Dalton. Very close. Very close. We in our band, the band I used to play for, 5-4, and myself and the bassist used to practice together.
Yeah.
So we put on a metronome, and then I would choose a roll that I'm doing, whether it's a double stroke roll or single stroke roll, and then we would practice together. So you would do a scale. You would go ba 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 ba, for example, and I would do ta 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 ta, and then we would go from maybe 60 beats per minute to 70 to 100, to 120 until we can't anymore. And then we used to sit bass and drums with the metronome, and then we would take a certain groove. So we play tuf ka to the tuf 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 ka, and then you would play a bass guitar running on my bass, on my bass, and then we used to play a game in practicing where he would follow me on the bass drum and where I would follow him on the bass.
Yes.
And in way, obviously, playing as a band, myself and him would learn to sync. We would learn to follow each other within a song. If he goes to a certain role on the bass, I would follow him and vice versa. So I think it's very important for that to play together. And also, bass guitar gives a groove, man. When the bass comes in, it gives it soul, it gives a song groove, and as well as drums, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's quite important, and the relationship between a drummer and the bass guitarist needs to be rock solid. Your drummer cannot be playing a bass line for something, for a simple thing. An African song has got a solid bass line going the whole time, and then it's very tempting for a bassist to play a swing bass in an African song. I know this, I've been there. And it makes sense. It even sounds right. But
Exactly.
if you listen to the drummer, it shouldn't work out that way.
100%.
So, Brother Katlejo, do you have a question for Brother Theo?
Actually, who motivated you to play drums? Who was your motivation?
Yeah, so I started playing drums. I was in primary, that was standard 3. At school, started getting formal lessons. And obviously, it's something that was, music was in, obviously. My dad played guitar, my mom was singing, Nehemiah played all the instruments he could find. Maya playing, Emmanuel's playing trumpet, obviously, and bass. And my mom came within the family. You would come home, you would be tired, you wanna sleep from school, then you hear the trumpet in the one room, and you're like,
Yes.
get up, let me go practice. And Nehemiah's going in one room, my mom is singing in the kitchen, and I think the motivation from my family.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I think Brother Katlejo really asks an important question, and to start music without somebody motivating you is very difficult. And I think yourselves as well, being as talented as you guys are, I think it's very irritating when people tend to think that the piano is the hardest, the guitar is the second hardest. And there at the tail end, you've got bass and drums, And in general, people can't really figure out which one is harder. Is it drums or bass? They're equally easy, throw them together. So for you to be motivated to play one of those instruments, I think is a very important thing, because, the bar is set very high for drummers and bassists to be able to hold the band together. Nobody hears when you're playing right, but the moment you play wrong, you throw out the entire church, the entire band. So definitely one of those background instruments, guys. I am so glad that you could join us here this evening. I'm really happy. It's amazing, and we're really looking forward to have you on again and to see you, playing on those big stages and playing in church. It was really, and I like to hear your opinion about, music and in general. And I think the audience that's watching this evening also likes to hear that. So thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And that's all from me. Okay, good guys. See you. God bless. Wow, Anto's drum is amazing. You can definitely learn something. I would definitely say that everyone in the band should learn to play drums, at least the basics, at some point in their lives. So next up, we've got the guitarists, and we've got a couple of young men joining us this evening. And they've got some interesting views on music and on music in the church. So please stay tuned, and I hope you're going to enjoy this. Tando, wow, that was some really, really awesome playing there. We thoroughly enjoyed that. You're really, really busy on that guitar there. Well, I tried to follow some of the chords you were playing. I think I got lost in the first three, and then I was done. Tell us about yourself. Who are you? Where you from, Brother Tando?
God bless you to all. My name is Brother Tando Mkize. I am originally from Soweto. I fellowship at Ramfontein Christian Assembly in Ramfontein. And I've been playing guitar since I was 14 years old.
So Tando, I know that you studied, guitar. You went to formal training, but that's not the only instrument you can play. What else can you play?
Yeah, so I also played piano. So I actually started playing keys from the age of 8. I used to borrow a keyboard from a brother church and just find my way around it. Try to remember to play the things I heard the brothers of church play. And then guitar I picked up while in school. There was a teacher who was giving lessons, and I was around about 13, 14 years old, and I took a hold of that opportunity. And but the teacher only gave those lessons for about a month, and then she stopped. But then the bug had already gotten a hold of me. Unfortunately, in those days there was no YouTube, so I would learn from whoever I could get a hold of.
Okay. So you then, you went to Cape Town and you studied music there. Tell us about your major instruments that you played.
So guitar, I would regard guitar as my major. The instrument I would say I'm most comfortable in playing in any key. I do play also some bass guitar. I have to also give credit to Brother John Golden, by the way. He took me under his wing. And the first band I ever played for was at the Willows. With him, I was around about 15 years old. And then how I actually went to study music was funny enough, my dad was the one who took me to my first music school. Because I didn't do music while in school, so it was after my matric. So I did like a bridging course. I had to spend 3 years doing a bridging course, learning how to read music and write music, and how to now put musical terms to the things I was doing on the instrument and so on and so forth. Then I decided I wanted to go further and go to university. So I saved up money and went and applied it at UCT, and specifically UCT because I was told at the time that UCT is the best music school or university in the country. So saved up money. I knew no one in Cape Town. And yeah, so I went down for auditions. I mean, the amount that I knew the guitar at the time wasn't, I wouldn't say it was enough for me to actually say that I was like a student material to go all that way. But I took the chance and yeah, I made it through and got into UCT and spent 3 years there.
Okay, awesome. And so you're quite an established musician by now. I mean, we've heard you play. I've had the privilege of playing a few times with you in a band as well. And definitely, although you play a lot of piano when it comes to church music, I know that guitar is your first love. So now we've heard how you played that song. My question to you is, I don't know how many chords you used in that song. Must be close to 100 or something like that. But in a typical church setup, would you play like that, or is that more for personal when you're playing on your own?
No, definitely I wouldn't be playing like that in church.
Okay.
By the way, the song I was playing there is "Falling in Love with Jesus" by Jonathan Butler. He's one of the people I used to check out a lot when I was studying jazz guitar. That was my major, jazz guitar. So yeah, but no, in church, I would probably use some of those chords, but not not the chord progressions I'm using in that song. Definitely would not be the way I'd play in church.
So let's imagine somebody sings that song as an item in church, and you happen to be behind the guitar. Would you play the chord progression you played now, or would you slow it down? I'm asking this with a reason. I have a reason why I'm asking this.
Yeah. I would definitely slow it down. It would sound similar. Okay. But no, I wouldn't make I wouldn't add in that many chord movements. For example, I played. There's a place in the song where there is a diminished chord, and from that diminished chord, I played an inversion of the same chord before moving to the chord that I'm actually going to. So yeah, that kind of thing I definitely will not do when playing in church.
Sure. Okay. So you see, we heard a lot from other musicians where they, the bass guitarists last week were telling us that, if you're singing a song or you're playing a song in church and you're not playing it according to the way the songwriter intended it, then you're doing it a big disservice, and you should rather just leave the song alone. And that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
So I've got another question for you. You got married recently, and congratulations once again. So now you've been practicing, guitar, maybe an X amount of time before you were married. Now that you're married, do you get to spend so much time with your guitar, or is it a bit less?
It's funny because before I was married, I don't know why my life was so hectic and so busy. I hardly had time for the guitar. Well, maybe I'm lucky because I got married just before lockdown. So yeah. I actually do get more time with my guitar now than I used to. I actually missed my guitar a lot. In fact, the first 2 weeks of lockdown, I didn't have the guitar with me. It was at home. I literally went home just to go get the guitar because I was missing it so much. So yeah. So I would say that getting a 9 to 5 and trying to get the balance in life. I kind of let loose on practicing or playing on guitar. So I'm
Yeah.
only picking up again now.
Okay. I know that's good. We thank Sister Esther for that, for giving you the freedom to practice it. So let's move over.
Thank you very much.
Over the years, you've definitely matured in your music from the first time that I've heard you up to how you're playing, today, and not so much from a skill level. I think more from a spiritual level. We can hear it interpreted in your music. So I want to know, what is your view then on music in the church? Specifically, you've already mentioned that you've had a bit of jazz background when it came to your studies at UCT. And obviously that is a very, very hot topic when it comes to music in the church. Everybody's saying that jazz is creeping in, jazz notes, jazz, whatever. And people that don't understand will usually make those comments. So I want to know from you, I mean, you're the expert now, you've studied the music. What is your view on that? And I want you to specifically comment on jazz, because that is a real point of contention.
Yes. I'm actually grateful for this opportunity because it's one of those things that I've wanted a platform to talk, especially to musicians, about. Because something that was very striking to me and that excited me while I was studying and studying music and studying jazz is that jazz and actually came from church music. The origins of jazz was church music. For example, the very early stages of jazz was what was known as ragtime piano, which was pretty much taken from church music. And then because they had a need for entertainment, and in those days they had no electricity, so the only form of entertainment was having music entertainment by what you would call maybe excellent musicians. And slaves started getting a hold of instruments. So so when you study jazz history, there's this thing called the field holler. So the field holler was a way slaves would communicate while working the fields because they were not allowed to speak to each other while working. And when you listen to the field holler, it is distinctly what we know today as blues, the blues scale. And that field holler was also the way they sang in church because the slaves were forced to take their master's religion. So all slaves were Christian, but they never worshipped with their masters. They had a separate church where they worshipped under the tree somewhere. And they didn't have instruments, but the way they sang and the style in which they sang had that, what we know today as blues, had that blues element. And you would hear it even in today's African-American gospel music. It's still there. I actually wanted to demonstrate it on the guitar, but I don't want to take too much time. Let me see. So a basic blues would be. That's the blues scale. And if someone sing Amazing Grace, how sweet, you hear that sound all the time in today's gospel music. And now when someone says to me that blues is from the devil, I disagree, because from what I studied, it came from church music. And that's simply how they naturally sang. They were not showing off. They were not trying to be extraordinary. That's just how they naturally sang. And so my take, generally speaking, is if we're gonna take church music and try to define it by our own taste or how we feel about the music that is being that we're hearing, we will miss the point altogether. I think the Holy Spirit must be the one guiding us. And for me, if that music is spirit-filled, for me, my concern mostly is about the person who's performing the music more than the music itself. Because if that person is led by the Holy Ghost, he will know how to play in a way that's pleasing to the Holy Spirit. And just to maybe end of my comment, I learned something very profound from Pastor Dale Adams, who himself has a music background and actually studied music and has a degree in music. And one thing he taught me, he said, when playing in church, always be sensitive to the moving of the Spirit, of Holy Spirit. And if the Holy Spirit is leading you in that direction, you follow that. But if we start putting our own ideas, we'll end up with something that, I mean, I've heard brothers who only approve of country music. And my last comment on this would be, I heard, I think brother, it's Brother Steve Francis' son, I just forgot his name. Brother Alistair made a very profound statement on that, and he said, country music is also worldly music. If you go over to the countryside in America, you'll find country music being sung for as a love song to someone. So then who said country music is the the standard? So I just generally think that the Holy Ghost must be the one leading. Then we'll go the right direction.
Absolutely. Wow, Brother Tando, I think that was quite a good answer that we've received from you there, and it's a question that is on many people's minds. So I'm glad we could hear it from someone that has been to university and studied this and knows the origins of the music. A simple song like Amazing Grace, with that blues scale in between there. It sounds very nice. Thanks, Brother Tando. So I'm going to just open the forum to everyone over here, the other musicians that are on here. And I want to ask, at this point, if there's anybody that has, let's start with Brother Tony, if you've got a question for Brother Tando.
My question would be, does playing other instruments influence any way that he plays the guitar or makes him distinct from us who just play guitar?
Yeah, so definitely me having a strong piano background does influence how I play guitar a lot, especially how I approach harmony on guitar. The chords that I would choose to play are very much influenced by what I would do on piano.
Okay, that's very interesting, Brother Tony. Thanks for the question, because last week we heard from Brother Zion, telling us how he just took all his chords from the piano and put them on guitar. And you are then approaching it the other way around, if I hear you correctly. And that is quite interesting. Okay, Brother Abe, you have a question for Brother Tando?
Thanks for sharing, Brother Tando. Just want to ask, like dealing with the difference of opinions in church, because you have the more matured brothers and sisters, and then have the youth, and everyone's got a different preference. So how do you go about like navigating between like what type, the type of sounding that you should play at any time? It's because you get sometimes you get criticism from, usually, like for me personally, sometimes our band we get criticism from the older, the more mature members of the fellowship. But so how do you fix that? How do you deal with that when you get like criticism from? Do you go talk to the person and explain your point of view, or?
Yeah, I think with the older members of the message, a lot of things that we, the new generation, if I am to say, are getting up to is very foreign to them, and they it tends to be very difficult for them to warm up to it and accept it. It takes a while. That's what I've realized, because there was a time where concerts were frowned upon, and they were not a thing to even dare to think of in message circles. But nowadays, we're seeing more and more brethren hosting concerts. You couldn't even use the word concert if you were gonna do something of that nature, without someone criticizing, saying something about it. So I would say that it's giving it time, understanding them and loving them, and understanding where they come from, the background they come from, and what they were taught in their days, and that I think we, the new generation, just need to put them a bit more, pray that the Lord will, help us to be in harmony, and also as a musician, I believe music is a ministry. So before you even go to service, you need to spend time, with the Lord, so that He will direct you, so that when you're playing in church, you'll play in a way that will be a blessing. Eventually you'll find that one day you'll play that thing that you were criticized for, and somehow the same person who was criticizing you comes and appreciates you for it. That has happened to me before.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying that just allow the Holy Spirit also to guide you and lead you, because it's not easy, for the older generation to translate to, the newer generation, and the things that are coming up now that they regarded as taboo back in their day.
Yeah. Thanks, Tando.
Absolutely. I think thanks, Brother Tando, for that comment, because it is definitely something that we have to deal with. All musicians, I think the piano is probably the least that has to deal with it, but from the guitar to the bass guitar to the drums, is constantly dealing with criticism from all sides, and the older people feeling you too loud, and the younger people feeling you too soft. So, two preferences, and it's preferences. It's exactly that. It's preferences. It's a matter of getting into a car and putting music louder, or getting into a car and putting it softer. It's just your preference. So thanks for that. We're going to go over to Brother Abe now. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I enjoyed that very much. Whoa, brother. Hey, tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Hi guys. Introducing myself. Abraham. My name is Abraham. Currently, I'm staying in New Zealand. I'm studying here in New Zealand, but I'm from a small island in the Pacific called Samoa. Um, like it's just a dot on the globe, man. But yeah, I serve. So I played for my home church, Samoa. I'm talking about Samoa. I play piano there, and
Mhm.
here at church here in New Zealand, I play guitar. And I've been playing for. I'm 24 now. I've been playing since 14, yeah, probably 14,
This
approximately 14 years old.
Yes. So I want to hear. I want to hear about the song that you've played. You know, I think I want to challenge myself actually, because when I heard that song the first time, I thought I heard a little bit of some African licks in there, and
Yeah.
then the bass notes reminded me of some country music. You know, when they play the bass notes plus the strumming together. So I'm a little bit confused on is that the island style?
Yeah, you got it. That's the island style. The second part, man. Um, the first song was bless the Lord, oh my soul. But yeah, just incorporated some of the island picking and stuff. But
Yeah.
the last part, the last picking was like basically every islander knows that picking, or basically a Samoan. Um, so that one of the first songs that I learned to play was that solo, and yeah, so a lot of songs yeah just incorporated in, but yeah, so you could say it's island style.
I loved it. I loved that style. It was really amazing, and it does not sound easy to play. I mean, you've got some bass notes there. I have met a few guitarists. I don't understand it, but I've met a few guitarists that do not understand, you know, a bass line. But you managed to play the bass line. You managed to play the lead. You managed to play some chords in there. It was quite involved.
I try to incorporate everything, but yeah, it's all good once you it's pretty easy to learn. Just but since I started learning this when I was young, so a lot of I guess the style that I usually play with, a lot of it is involves like just the bass and the treble picking. But
Mhm.
yeah.
So if you're playing in a band and you've got a bass guitar, would you still do that on the guitar or not?
No, definitely
Oh,
not. Our bass guitarist, he's pretty good, and basically I don't want to show him up because he's gonna show me up. But yeah, it's all about balance, really.
yeah.
Also, a pianist, sometimes she goes like plays like the low notes, but we try to
Hmm.
not play too because you can't hear the bass otherwise.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I try to balance it out with the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the guitar you're playing there, it sounds like a steel string. Yeah, what is your guitar of choice?
Yeah, steel string. This one is Ibanez.
Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't had a like one guitar of choice. I just play any guitar, any yeah, any guitar I get. I just play it. I just
Yeah.
the longest one I've owned actually, but Ibanez. I've had it for been 4 years now.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, but for church I play the electric guitar, so I don't take this one to church.
Oh,
Mm,
okay. So you're
yeah.
quite versatile playing electric guitar or playing acoustic guitar. You're versatile on both of them.
Um, yeah, I'll say so. Um, just electric guitar because I play it every Sunday, so I've learned to,
Yeah.
just I also put some picking in it. For electric guitar, I usually pick. And then highly strong though on an electric guitar. But when I'm playing acoustic, but sometimes like one of the brothers will hop on electric, and when I'm playing acoustic, I'll usually be strumming. Yeah, unless there's a solo that I need to pick for.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
so have you had any formal training, or is it all just self-taught?
This guitar was self-taught. I went to piano school though. Finished. I stopped at grade 6. So my main instrument is piano. I think yeah, like for Tando, I prefer playing the guitar, just because I like filling in like for the piano, and I like the small riffs that you do on the guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I prefer guitar, but sometimes I have no choice but to play the piano.
Oh, no, good. I think I've watched you on a few Zoom services. You're always sitting there with your guitar in the background playing. I've seen you a few times there. So
Yeah.
that's quite amazing. So getting to that important question, we heard the question you asked Tando. So I'm interested in hearing what is your opinion of music in the church, especially coming from a younger generation.
Well, I don't know if I'll get in trouble for this. Yeah, it's pretty hard, really, to try to go on and try to cater for everyone's preferences.
Yeah.
It's that's one of the main things that you don't wanna be a stumbling block for someone doing worship. That's one of the things that really have to be careful with. How I always think to that one of our the band leaders, we always use that scripture where when the evil spirit comes onto to Saul, and David will grab the harp and he'll play, and the evil spirit will leave.
Yeah.
So he was making that as an analogy. When people come in, they bring all the burdens from the week throughout the week, and all a lot of things they're carrying throughout the week, and they want to get into a safe space. And I guess that's I see it as one of our service to what's the word, our ministry.
Yeah.
When they come in, that we play a song that helps lighten their burden and gets them ready. But really, it's sometimes it's hard because different preferences. Two brothers in our church, who I know for sure, they Holy Ghost filled men, very mature, but they have two different preferences. One doesn't like Kirk Franklin, and the other one likes Kirk Franklin. But yeah, so it's this sort of thing you have to navigate. But yeah, so mostly we've been criticized of playing jazz, of being too jazzy. Our band's been criticized of that. And then it's been criticized of being too what do you call it? To I'll say reggae sort of. So we've been criticized, yeah, but so we learned to try to play it maybe soft jazz. So I don't know what's called, but try to I don't know, but
I'm not sure everybody picked that up, but you said you've been accused of being too ravey. Now, I've been, we've been accused of many things, but ravey, you need to send me a ravey song. I need to hear what a gospel ravey song sounds like.
Yeah, well, everyone's just doing their own trills, doing it. You know, that's another thing that we as musicians need to be careful of is when we go off on our own turn to the churches here, we go off and and
Yeah.
as Brother Tando was saying, just to be sensitive of the atmosphere
Yeah,
because we don't
absolutely.
want to ruin it. I totally agree.
Absolutely. I think that was a very good answer, and I think you tied in very well with the pianists. We just had them a while ago, and they spoke about the exact same scripture with David playing on his harp, and I think that
Oh,
should be, yeah. I think you might have been speaking to the pianists.
oh, was it Kim?
They shared the same sentiments, that when you're playing and you have it on your mind that you are trying, people are coming in with different spirits, spirits of depression and whatever else they come into church with. And you playing there, if you are trying to put on a show or trying to show off, you might not get the same result, where somebody might just leave with more spirits than what they came in with. And that is not the goal, I think, of musicians. But thanks, Brother Abe. I think you really blessed us, with your music, with your answers. And it's so good to hear that the challenges you are having way down in New Zealand is the same challenges we are having in South Africa. So we are definitely fighting the exact same devils. So I'm gonna, just ask the other brothers here if they've got a few comments that they'd like to make. Let's start with Brother Tony. Would you like to say something, Brother Tony?
Yeah, I would. I just want to find out from him how good are like the musicians at their church, and because it depends how good you are. If you're really good, you can try a lot of things and still be in the frame of what you're supposed to sound like in a specific song. And how do they balance all the skill that they have from what they play on the side with what they play at church?
So our band, we have like individually, there'll be how individually you'll be a good soloist. So our pianist, she's really good at playing solo music. But that's the other thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that when we blend together, sometimes we had to limit how we play so we could really balance everything out. We don't want to. So our band is at the moment we have our bassist has been layering the bass. We have two keyboardists and then a drummer. That's the one thing. We're all pretty young, all in the 20s.
Okay.
The one thing is like trying to relate to the more mature, because everyone's pretty onto it. We all want to play the same type of music.
Yeah.
But I guess sometimes we've learned over the years, to just accept everything, accept the criticism, and just play accordingly to the atmosphere at the time.
Absolutely.
And it always comes through. It always proves through when we play. And the other thing is, as Brother Tanda was saying, is preparation before you start playing, before you get into church. Just your preparation, because these people are coming in. The members are coming in with all sorts of baggages, but you also have you also carried baggage throughout the week. Anything you're facing throughout the week, so that's why you got to be really prepared before you start playing. Um, and yeah, so our band pretty young, but it's they playing well. They don't really run one person to stand off, unless after church really. Everyone can just play however they want.
No, that's good. Brother Tando, do you have a question for Brother Abe?
Yes, definitely. So, Brother Abe, you mentioned a lot about how that you sometimes criticize for playing it a bit too jazzy. Now I know that with my experience, when you have a lead guitarist in a band, that's usually the guy that gets accused a lot of being too jazzy, or so. So as a lead guitarist in your band, you mentioned earlier on that the pianist is very good at playing melodies, and she plays the melodies a lot. But how does she play all the melodies, or do you rotate, and sometimes do you get a chance to play the melody of the song? And how do you then navigate and try to make sure that if you are playing the melody, you're playing it in a way that you're not going to step on some toes? Because I know the lead guitar is you can get carried away very easily on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes, because our main keyboardist, her style is sort of like black gospel churches, like sort of really like that style. So sometimes when she go, I play the melody in the back, just picking, but we just focused on just blending well together. The melody will always be there, but we're just playing the chords. Sometimes the synthesizer will jump in and play the melody while everyone's doing, trying to blend and harmonize and balance everything out. But yeah, so it's not just the keyboardist, the main keyboardist that plays the melody. So it's like three of us that alternates, rotates really. Play the melody. Sometimes the bass will play the melody.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really good.
So Brother Abe,
That's when everyone gets excited.
Absolutely. You playing the same band with Sister Kim, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had Sister Kim on last week on piano from New Zealand, and I mean she's got some good skill on the piano there, and you just mentioned the style that she's playing. My question then, just last question to you is, in South Africa, our influence generally comes from African music. That is in general what we would be listening to, unless you grew up with different music. Then you might have country music as a background. We heard some of the guitarists last week. Country music was their background. But for you guys in New Zealand, what type of music influences your style of playing in church specifically?
So our church is pretty multicultural. So we have people from all sorts of nationality, but mostly islanders, South Africans, and so everyone comes in with their own type of playing style that they grew up on. But us islanders are like growing up in the islands it's usually reggae.
Ah.
Yeah. So in the islands, that's the sort of style that a lot of islanders I'm not talking about message relievers. I'm talking about just growing up in the islands. It's usually it's reggae. That's like the main style that they. So I think it sort of influenced the way that the islanders like play their music. And so when we come into church, when we play South African jazz, South African jams, and any sort of jams, is usually like got that groovy. But I don't know what it's called, but let's just call it island African fusion. So it's usually something like that. that sort of playing. Yeah. So and then all type of all the fast songs. We play like that. We play, you know, same chords, and then the piano we just go do our own trill and then stuff like that. And sometimes the bass will play do his own trill. But yeah, so I don't know what to call that style. Maybe island African fusion.
I like that. I like that. I think we need to all just take a trip there, brothers. We need to go to New Zealand and go learn some island African fusion.
Yeah, definitely come over.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks, brother. Hey, we really enjoyed that. Absolutely. I think you've got enough South Africans there. We need to come over to you. Absolutely. Thanks so much. I enjoyed that very much. I enjoyed your style of playing, and I mean, we'd love to have you with us again in the future, and some more of your band members.
Yeah.
Actually, would like to hear that bassist of yours, and hear what he plays like, and definitely just get a feel of the type of music you guys are experiencing down over there. But now we're going to go over to Brother Tony. Brother Tony, wow! Don't you want to introduce yourself to us, my brother?
Hi, I'm Brother Tony from Soweto originally, but been living in Midrand for the longest time now. And I fellowship in Pretoria, Willows, at Pastor George Martin's church.
My first question to you, Brother Tony, do you play in church?
Not at the moment, no. not right now, unfortunately. But it's the best place for me to play anything.
I'm asking this question simply because we had Brother John, who's your band leader. We had him on a little while ago, speaking about music and all of that. And now, listening to you, I think that style of music that you played there, I absolutely love the way you use your pedal. How many pedals do you have?
One I've saved up for it, and actually got it. It's the Boss GT. I just have it here quickly.
Oh,
I
sure.
would suggest
Absolutely.
it to any musician that has a low budget, doesn't cost more than 3,000 Rand. It's really nice, man. You can do a lot with this. You can record, you can loop, you can create your own sounds that you prefer and save them as presets and so forth.
Wow, and I think that came through quite nicely. Tell us about the sounds that you used on the loop pedal there.
So for the backtrack, I just use like a normal clean sound to play the chords.
Okay.
And then for the first part where I was leading the anointing song, I used the wah-wah. And then the second part I used, it's called crunchy something on my pedal. It's something crunchy, but it's like just a lot of distortion.
Yeah, and like a distortion pedal. Yeah, grunge type. Yeah, I think I always enjoy that sound on the guitar. I mean, it comes a lot from the the older, what we would call, I don't know, metal music, or, you know, the worldly music. And then when you hear it in church, you're going to get a lot of flack for playing that kind of sound in church. So
That's very true.
so, you know, Brother Tony, I know that you're very talented. You're a, you know, singer, and you've got your own style of music. You know, and I really enjoyed. I mean, I've seen you at a concert, one or two, and seen you perform and all that. So I think your musical knowledge is very, very vast. Do you have any formal training?
No, no, not really. No formal training.
So all this is self-taught.
Well, I've been influenced by a lot of musicians in different parts of my learning life. I know when I started, Eliezer used to play bass at my church. I was really young. He took me in, and from there, I just used to learn from the musicians that used to play from my church. Because there was a few. Tando at one stage was a guitarist when I was young, and then Sister Lois. We had a Sister Lois that was really good with holding down the rhythm, and then we had Mordecai. Mordecai came through, and then we had I think it's Davi. There was a colored brother, Davi, who used to play lead guitar.
David Brunt, yes.
Then there was Josh, a Congolese brother that was just amazing on guitar. Yeah, and then from there I came in after all that.
Well, I really enjoyed your style of playing. Definitely something different. And then my question obviously is, when you're playing in a church setup, would you play like that or not at all?
It depends which church. I mean, some churches are really relaxed. Some churches like these things, and some of us know. At my church, I personally wouldn't play. I wouldn't lead as much. It wouldn't really bless them. It would really be a stumbling block to all the. Because one time we had a really, really embarrassing experience where I was young, right? Eliezer was my mentor, and he played bass. He's really good with bass solo. In his time, he was like one of the best bass soloists in the Message for me personally.
Yeah.
And he asked us to do a song for the church, and we played, and you know, I just played some chords, he leaded on bass, and then we swapped. He played some chords on bass, I leaded on guitar, and that was tragic. I mean, the feedback was, oh my goodness, we shouldn't have done that. Basically, bottom line, we shouldn't have done that. So from that experience, we learned that some things you can do and some things you don't even dream about them.
I think that's an important comment you're making there, because, you know, there's a big difference between concert music and church music, you know, and what would sound good at a concert will not necessarily sound good and bless the people in church. And I think that's quite important. What guitar are you using there?
Right now, I am using a Fender Strato, which is lended to me by Mordecai.
Wow.
God bless him. Lord knows when I will return it back.
we want to have him on with us as well. So maybe you couldn't come on because he didn't have his guitar with him. Wow, it sounds
He's an
very
acoustic
good.
guitarist. He must hold it down for us.
So, you know, now we've heard a bit about your, you know, your opinion on church, you know, and church music and yourself playing there. What is your opinion personally on church music? You know, what should be allowed, what should not be allowed?
Well, personally, I think we must play authentic to whatever sound that the song is. So if you play Only Believe, I know a lot of believers wouldn't appreciate drums and leading and solos and Only Believe. You need to keep it to that simple organ and, you know, single taps on the drum and just drumming on guitar. And if you're playing an African song, there's African believers that are driven by such songs. You can't take a country beat and slow it down and put it in an African song. Keep the momentum going. And if you play a country song, do what country people do, you know? Just make it sound authentic so everyone gets their blessing.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more there. And, you know, I've really visited quite a few churches in my lifetime, and I've seen that thing happen. You know, I really don't want to make fun of it, but people sing Utando Lake, you know, as a prayerful chorus. You know, that's how slow they sing it. So you know, you don't want to be caught in that. And then the flip side of it is singing Only Believe with a, how did Brother Abe put it, a ravey beat, you know. Your
Yeah,
drummers
a
going, your
ravey
bass
beat.
is
I
running,
like that.
you know, and you, everybody's just doing their own thing. So I absolutely, I love that comment that you've made. You know, one has to read how the song was played, and then obviously how do you practice it? Because my biggest criticism for musicians is, don't correct me in church, correct me at practice. You know, so if I played the beat like this in practice, don't tell me in church that I'm too loud, too soft, too fast, too slow,
Hey,
too smooth,
listen.
too, you know. So I think that's kind of where it comes in, you know. And if they're allowing it in practice, if the band leader is allowing it, he should be allowing it in church. So I think that's ultimately where that whole ordeal comes from. But Brother Tony, I mean, you've played with quite a few people in your life, and you've played. You know, before I open up for questions, we had Brother Spa on last week, and you know, I managed to get a recording of you and Brother Spa together. So I just like to play that for the musicians over here. Let them just hear what the two of you sound like together.
Okay.
Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, lots of fire there. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was some good stuff. Well done there, Brother Tony. You and Brother Spa. That was amazing.
Thank you
Brother
very
Abe,
much,
do you
sir.
have a question for Brother Tony?
Yeah. Oh, what was that song that you guys were playing?
Um,
Oh,
I'm
some
not
heat,
sure
man.
of the title. It's that song. I
God,
don't need me
to
not to
leave
leave
me.
me. Yeah,
Yeah, that one there. That was mean.
that was the one. Thank you, man. You probably did something with it.
Do you play? Do you just play the guitar? Do you play bass also?
I do. I wouldn't consider myself a bassist, but you know, when you're a guitarist, you are a bassist
Yeah,
because
yeah,
every time you play that first single note, it kind
yeah.
of gets you into to that single note thing that you do on the bass, and then you from there you just adapt.
Yeah. How long did it, you know, like how long did it take you, you know, to get to the level of playing that you are now? How long did you practice for? So
I've
gradually
played
over the
I've played guitar since I was young, but it was
yeah.
on and off. And then the church kind of kicked me out when the good people started coming in. They moved me to drums. And I played drums for the longest time. I know I've served in church playing drums since forever. And while I was on drums, I neglected guitar. But then when I was off drums at church, then I focused on guitar by myself at home. So I would say maybe
Yeah.
to get to this level, I'd safely say 7 years, roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been playing roughly for like 7 years. And yeah, it's been an experience. It's been an experience.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good, bro.
Hopefully, I can get a ticket to New Zealand and come to the States. We can play
Come on,
together.
we'll take you everywhere.
Brother Tando, you have a question for Brother Tony.
Yes, yes. Brother Tony. So
Yes, sir.
I'm a fan of your style of playing, man. If I had at least more time, I would have learned. I think you have a lot of influence of what we call locally Mpakanga music, which is the
Yes, sir.
local Zulu guitar style, and Spa as well has that influence. I just want to know where you learned your Mpakanga touch there, and yeah, also how much time do you spend really on guitar? Because for someone to run lines like you do on the lead, I know that's hours. That's hours of practice.
My style of playing our traditional music came a lot. Most of it came from I'd say joyous, but also like Maskandi at the back of your head. You know what African, because I grew up in an environment where they play a lot of Maskandi and loud. Our neighborhood was those neighborhoods where every household had a big speaker and everyone was supposed to be heard. So I'd hear a lot of African music, even in taxi ranks and everything, and you kind of get used to how it should sound in its authentic, form. And that never left me. So every time I try play music that is African, that's still in the back of my mind. But now I have to mix it with what other musicians are doing and what I've learned from other musicians that are playing in a gospel band, like Solomon Mahlangu's Guitarist, the one who played in Obrigado, Shikwembu Shamatim, but the old one. That guy was heat. He was fire. So I took time to learn all those tricks that he had to showcase.
Oh, that's quite something. I mean, I've got my fair share of playing guitar, and I know that to sit with a song, I didn't have the patience for that. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
But practice really does change your game, guys. Trust me. Nothing beats practice. Nothing beats practice. I mean, practice it until you figure it out.
So tell me, Tony, on that.
Nothing can't be done.
We heard from Brother Nehemiah last week, speaking about 6 to 8 hours of practice a day. What would you say is a good time to be practicing guitar per day?
Just don't sleep without playing guitar. Like right now, since the lockdown, I haven't. It's right here, and I can't ignore it. It's just looking at me. I'm looking at it. Something has happened. I practice maybe say roughly for I play for maybe 2 hours and practice for an hour. The problem comes in when practice becomes jamming, and then you kind of get into the cycle of repeating the same things that you know. That's mainly what I want to break. But sitting with something that I have is maybe it takes about 4 hours in a day, to learn a specific thing and have it completed and meet my target for that day.
Wow. So I want to ask you a question. Brother Spa is giving, he gives lessons and all of that. Do you also give lessons to people?
I tried that. I don't think I have the patience for it. I'm teaching my brother guitar right now, and it's something, eh? I don't know. With me, when I was younger, I just feel like I just wanted to. I just kept going, even when I'm alone. But with other people, you really need to be that guy that you don't want to be on a normal day, just telling them what to do, how much to practice, and it's challenging.
Wow. I think that was awesome, Brother Tony. Thanks so much for sharing all those stories and your experience with us. We would definitely also like to hear more from you in the future. I mean, you are definitely a talented musician. And thanks, Brother Abe, getting up this morning to join us, nice and early. And we really enjoyed that island style. It was amazing. Brother Tando, thanks so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you. I mean, I think you're older than these two gentlemen over here. I'm not going to say I'm older than you, but Coming on to the bar.
Yes, you are always.
So, I mean, I really appreciate you, gentlemen, and what you shared. I think this knowledge you are sharing, with our viewers out there is priceless. Many people will not get to meet Brother Abraham, in New Zealand. And I mean, there's hundreds of people in the Message musicians that have heard him play this evening. And, I mean, it's something good, something new. I guarantee you, Brother Abe, if you're at a convention and you have no intention of playing, somebody's going to ask you to play. Because now they've heard you. Cool. Thanks, gentlemen. So that's it from us, folks. Thanks for joining us this evening. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our next episode. We hope to see you next week again. God bless and good night.